Everybody, and welcome. Tonight is Wednesday, October 19th. This is the Hendrick-Hudson Board of Ed meeting. We are currently in session, but if you could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First is, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? So moved. Second? Me. All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any items anybody would like pulled from the consent agenda? No? Okay. None will be pulled? No items, rather. Can I get a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second? Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The items removed from the consent agenda would be two donations. One is the McCory Scholarship. We've received a donation in the amount of $250 for the Margaret McCory Scholarship Fund. For those of you at home, Margaret McCory was a school nurse up at Blue Mountain, and when she passed away, just after she retired, her family set up a scholarship fund for students. It is at the high school level as they graduate, for kids who will be going into the medical field. It was a wonderful thing on the family's part, and we thank them. And the second is a Blue Mountain Home and Careers, the recipient of a Dazer Circline magnifier and 2 stands from a district employee, Gary Del Ciapo. Thank you very much to Mr. Del Ciapo. If I can get a motion to approve these two donations, one for $250 for Margaret McCory, and the 2 items for the Home and Careers class.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That brings us to our superintendent's report.
Yeah, a couple of quick updates. One that will be communicated to all parents tomorrow is we have a opportunity and actually a request from the state police to partner with the various school districts that Troop K, which is out of Cortland, provides service to. And this is an effort from the state police. It's a statewide initiative for their troopers to become more familiar with local schools, to be able to tour the schools, know the layout, know the exits. As troopers move different barracks, because they're assigned regionally, they're not always assigned to a barracks. The idea is to get as much foot traffic in the schools so they can familiarize themselves with each of the 5 buildings. So we're going to put a notice out on the website and to parents that if they see police cars at their schools, not to be alarmed, but it's a proactive measure and an opportunity for them to tour the schools and meet the principals and the staff, and that if there are emergencies at any of the schools which require any sort of police or ambulance or fire presence, we'll continue to let parents know during, as we typically have through phone calls and emails. Over the next few months, we'll start conversations with the board and the community around our potential capital project, which is a result of our building condition survey. Building condition survey is a 5-year plan required from the state education department, where a third-party architectural or engineer group inspects every single square foot of our schools and our district facilities. So we are at the point where we are zeroing in on priorities from that survey. We've begun working with our facilities committee and will continue to, and eventually conversations at the board level around cost, around priorities, and timing. The best time to do a capital project is when debt is retiring from a district. And one example of that is Croton. Croton Harmon last night voted to approve, it was in the 20 million range, a capital project. Their capital project had 0 impact on taxpayers because they were going to borrow for the renovations at the same time debt was coming off. So there was a 0 increase to the taxpayer. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at debt that we have coming off our rolls, which we do over the next 5 to 8 years. And the idea would be if we could match up any potential projects and borrowing with when debt is expiring so we can have the most minimal impact to our taxpayers. So those will be some of the discussions the the Facilities Committee will have, and certainly we will bring to the board. I've shared a basic outline with the board via email on what some of the findings were of the capital project. I walked through, the building condition survey. I walked through our PTA council, some of those highlights last Friday when we met, and we'll shortly go on tour probably around the holidays or after January to start talking to schools about what the school-specific recommendations were, just to start engaging them with what some possible opportunities may be. Also, we have begun communicating to schools and families results of the new State Education Department mandated lead water testing. We've communicated to everybody in our community that BV results are in, and of 90 samples that were taken, the health department identified 5 that need corrective action. Those 5 that needed corrective action, 3 of them were sinks that students and frankly staff did not have access to. A third one, or a fourth one, was an outdoor water spigot that's seasonal and that was already turned off. And another one was a faucet, a spigot we found in a server closet in the back of the building that at one point was part of the locker room. The difference is, and I think Charles asked this question, we did some random sampling of frequently used water sources in our schools last spring. The difference is with this protocol is the state is asking that every single water spigot, faucet, you name it, is tested. And there are 2 tests. There's a test that comes, just sort of a cold turkey test. You turn it on and you see what the results are, and then there's a flush test, a flush sample, which is you run it for anywhere between 10 and 30 seconds, and then you take the sample. And what the research tells us behind the flush test is sometimes you just have to get water moving to sort of make it less static. So the results are not in from the 2 other elementary schools yet, but once they are and they're analyzed, we'll communicate to those 2 schools, and then we have a timeline by the end of the year to test and have results in for the middle school and high school. So a lot of upcoming communication around lead pipes and potential lead in our water. The reality is it's a regional thing. We haven't found one district that hasn't tested positive. Doesn't make it good or bad, but it's something that we all need to be cognizant of, and we're going to have corrective action to make sure we minimize it. Part of it may be replacing some pipes in our schools. I tell a joke, and it's not a joke, but we have some piping in our high school that's original to the building back from the 1920s. So as we talk about our building condition survey and possible upgrades to our schools, this will be a significant piece of the conversation.
You had mentioned that 3 of the test positives were sinks that are not accessible to staff or students. Could you explain that?
Yeah, so we had 3 sinks, 2 or 3 sinks in the cafeteria in the kitchen that are not used for food prep or drinking. We have a secondary sink in the nurse's office that was only used for hand washing. And the other source was a seasonal outdoor spigot that had previously been capped.
Thank you.
Yep. Also, getting away from lead and police and construction, one of our own who are at the table is celebrating a National Merit Commended student. That's Lisa. Lisa's son is one of 4 students who were commended by the National Merit Commended Student, and we had one who was a semifinalist. All of the students, we've done some nice PR on their pictures and their stories and some quotes from Key staff have been put online in Facebook and social media, so that's always a great opportunity to celebrate, not only for families and not only for the high school folks to celebrate, but really remember that it took everyone along their pathway, starting at kindergarten or whenever they step foot in our district, that everyone played a piece in those students' success, and I hope everyone can join in celebrating. So congratulations.
Absolutely.
And lastly, we are, as crazy as it sounds, because it's been 80 degrees the last couple days, we're wrapping up our fall sports season. We have sectionals and
Very
playoffs,
successfully.
and we have a lot of end-of-season fun that's happening over the next couple weeks. And before we know it, tryouts will begin in mid-November for our winter sports. So we will keep you in the loop with individual and team successes, because a lot of the teams are in the throes of playoffs and postseason. I'll leave it at that.
Leave it on a good soccer and football. All right, thank you very much. That brings us to our committee reports. I know that this week we did have Finance Committee, and there have been a couple of PTA meetings. The Finance was, we talked a little bit about the building condition survey, and again, just that it's coming, and that this, a lot of what you talked about, but also started very preliminary about the budget. But again, that's sort of where we started and ended at that point. So I know I don't know that there were other committee reports to.
Went to the Frank G. Lindsay PTA last night, and basically they're just talking about their fall fundraiser activities and some things about cultural enrichment, and they need some shadows and positions for next year. So if you're a Frank G. Lindsay parent and you might be interested in shadowing for positions next year, contact one of the PTA.
I'm sure there's probably that conversation on the other two schools as well.
Yeah, I went to Furnace Woods PTA meeting last night as well, and we're getting geared up for the fair, which is going to happen October 29th. We hope people will come to that and support it. It's always a great event. And then there was also more talk about our 50th anniversary celebration in Furnace Woods. They are continuing with their monthly acts of kindness. Throughout the month of October, it was the Harry Chapman Run Against Hunger. We encourage the students to participate in that. In November, it's going to be it's a pajama collection, pajama drive.
Oh, that's so cool. Very nice.
It's a
I
charity.
attended,
I'm sorry? She was talking about the pajama drive.
I went to SEPTA last night. They had a guest presentation by Melissa Smith, who's a counselor at Panis, and she talked about ADHD, anxiety, depression, and self-injury, and how to deal with your child who may possibly have ADHD. And so it was a very interesting talk. She has several ideas and programs and thoughts, and was well attended. There were probably 25 people there. Also, they talked about trying to have something called a Week of Acceptance, and I think Joe's heard more about that.
Yeah, the Week of Acceptance was born out of Autism Awareness, which is in April. And what SEPTA wanted to do was to engage the other PTAs in the 5 other schools with creating not just about autism, but awareness, about diversity, students who learn differently and students who dress differently. I mean, awareness from all pieces of, or all angles. So the PTA Council is going to undertake that, and they're going to identify some opportunities to create awareness activities, whether it's speakers or dress-up days or curriculum initiatives in the 5 schools, and the co-presidents are going to work through their principals and then come back and either stagger something or pick a week or a 2-week window later in the spring where we could have a concerted effort around all things diversity and awareness.
The other thing I did last week, Westchester Putnam School Board Association did a program presentation on social and emotional wellness for children. And I attended that. We originally were supposed to be one of the initial panel participants, and then had her health issues and couldn't do it, so we stepped out. But I wanted to talk about it a little bit because I found it greatly useful, and I was so proud of our district to be one of the initial. It's kind of an innovative area of programming for high schools, for school districts. And the panelists were Michael Orth, who is the Deputy Commissioner of Community Mental Health for Westchester County, Jan Fisher, the Director of Public Affairs for the Westchester Jewish Community Service, John McCabe from Lower Hudson, Arlene Seymour from Putnam Family and Community Services, and then 7 school districts. They had a panel talk, and then 7 school districts: Valhalla, Scarsdale, Ossining, Byram Hills, Peekskill, Briarcliff, and Pelham talked about the ways they're implementing a social and emotional wellness in their buildings. The takeaways that I got from it: Jan Fisher, who is also a school board member in Briarcliff, beyond being at Westchester Jewish Community Center, talked about how the district's investment in social and emotional wellness provides one of, if not the highest, return on investment of all programming that you can do. And that was a very interesting point. And then several people in their presentations, I asked a question about how do you figure that out? And several people from the different districts talked about it and how they had seen that, both in attendance, academic improvement.
Well, maybe this is a conversation that we can have on the 9th, perhaps when Margaret and Lynn are back, because I'm sure that they would have, I'm sure that they can tell you exactly what they've noticed with our district as well. So.
Okay, but I wanted to run through what I heard.
No, that's terrific.
I mean, it was that was a stunning statement to me, and I just liked it. Another thing that they all seem to find is that it takes a collaboration between the Board of Education, public entities, and private entities are very important to give greater capacity and services than the district itself can provide. And Scarsdale talked about that, how they use a public-private partnership between the town of Scarsdale and a private to have 5 social workers that work with kids. Peekskill talked about how they got a grant and created Margaret's Place, which is a place where you can talk about domestic violence and interfamily violence and those kind of things. They got a grant from Joe Torrey Foundation.
Well, we probably have similar.
Byram Hills got a grant
Collaborations.
to start a flexible support program and partnered with the University of Michigan Depression Center. So they all talked about that. Briarcliff Manor started a youth mental health first aid training, and what they said, this collaborative training turned out to be just what the doctor ordered in a time of increased pressure on students to perform. And so, and then Pelham is starting a school yoga program because they decided that as part of their strategic plan, improving mindfulness and relaxation techniques would help children perform better.
Well, I know our schools are doing that as well. Like the PTA levels are doing that at all 3 as well. So I'm sure that it is indeed that collaboration.
So then they also talked about, several have mentioned that you have to address social and emotional wellness with your staff also. And if staff don't feel safe and supported, they can't provide that to children. So that was good. And then one, Lori, I know will love this. Valhalla's superintendent said, how do we know about the social and emotional health of our students? So they survey at least every other year and ask them about certain things. And one of the things is, do you know who to go to in the school? Who is your trusted adult that you can talk to? And they started in the elementary school and go up through. So, but that was one thing that all of them talked
Well, that's in
about.
process here, is it not? Yeah.
That
We're ahead of the curve.
that you have to have a trusted adult, and every child needs to know who that is and who to go to. So it was a very interesting program, and like all of those, everybody. Oh, I forgot Ossining. Ossining. You can go. Ossining is starting a program they call Ossining Basics, but it's modeled on Boston Basics, which is a research-based program out of Boston. And it's inspired by the fact that 80% of brain development happens in the first 3 years of life. And so they have 5 principles that they try to teach, and it's a community-wide effort They're trying to work with their fire departments, their police departments, their social workers, and you try to help families learn better ways to interact with their children to improve their brain development. And there's 5 principles that they work on, so they're starting it, they're rolling it out in December or January. The first one is maximize love, manage stress. Because everybody stresses, but if you maximize the love and the time that you spend with your kids, particularly when they're infants, they get attached, you attend to them, they get attached, and they develop faster and better. So it's you can actually go on and look up Boston Basics on the web, and it's a really interesting program.
Thank
So,
you.
yes. So, to go back to it again, I'm very proud that this board voted to initiate a social emotional awareness
It's a priority.
as a priority 2 Septembers ago, and we got started on it. And that we should have been presenting with these people, but things happen. But I think it's a good place to be and a good place to start. And we can talk about it in November again.
Well, thank you. Anybody else? That brings us to our first presentation discussion, and that would be the professional development. Oh, Margaret.
Yeah, I'm gonna put this on an agenda in November. Margaret, who's down in New York City at an event with Columbia Teachers College, would walk us through this, and we put this on and then realized she wasn't going to be here, so we'll
move
table
this
this and
to
bring it back.
November.
But it's
Okay.
essentially a mandate from the State Education Department that we have, that we provide opportunities and network with partners, BOCES, colleges, universities, so on and so forth, to provide rigorous and relevant opportunities for staff development to meet minimal requirements to maintain your certification. So we'll get into more of those details next time.
Yeah, I think if she's not here, it's sort of.
Yep. So then
Miss
the
something.
policies.
Okay, there are 3 policies. The first one is the Children's Internet Protection Act. Carol, yours?
Okay. In compliance with the
Moved away
children's...
further reading.
Thank you, Charles. There were some tweaks that needed to be made to update this policy, and those are in red on some people's copies. It doesn't really show up red on the screen. Oh, on this screen it does. Okay. On my copy it doesn't show up red either. So some of them are just...
It's that little bold part where applicable.
Yeah, where applicable, filtering should be implemented. So some of it is changes in the type of devices that are being used and the type of filtering that's being done. So it's just updating policy to reflect those newer technologies.
Some of it just looks like it doesn't look like it's dramatic changes.
No.
Just, all right, and this is something that's been in place anyway for some time, just something, given that it's constantly changing, I'm sure this needs to be updated.
Yeah, this really was born out of a lot of districts, including ours, moving toward a bring your own device, and certain districts with one-to-one laptop initiatives, and recognizing that all technology is not necessarily district-owned or provided.
I have a couple of thoughts. The second sentence of the first paragraph. Such technology protection, blah, 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 with regard to visual depictions that are obscene child pornography. It's not only visual depictions that are obscene child pornography abroad, there's also text and other things. So limiting the description to those words.
You just don't mean pictures, you just mean something that you would see that you're reading as well, correct? Is that what you mean by visual
The
picture?
visual depictions are pictures.
Well, yes and no,
Images.
but if you're looking, that's an image. That, this is an image, so it's, I think, I'm guessing that that's what that means. That it's, it's what the children see, whether it's words or pictures, the students.
Couldn't you just say with regard to material that are obscene? And that would cover everything.
I don't know. Yeah.
I
don't know what
we
kind of
miss our
filtering is
lawyers
available.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Right. I don't know what kind of filtering is available. If you can filter out specific words, I mean, you're not going to be able to filter out text that people are going to be able to see, and it's kind of like banning books from the library. I don't know whether that goes into a
That's a-
speech thing, or I'm not sure we can filter out paragraphs that might be offensive to people, or
You can filter
I
out.
know.
You can filter out text that has
Certain
offensive
words.
Mhm.
or thoughts. So,
Yeah, so
so what I'm just
I'd have to ask
if-
Matthew about that.
right. So that's my concern is if you just say visual depictions, there could be a whole wide world of other stuff that you're not limited. And by just saying visual depictions, you could have somebody argue that you would exclude that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
But if we don't,
I
but
hear
if
what
we
you're
don't
saying.
have if we don't have the capability to do that, and we have a policy saying we're
Right.
doing it, we are putting ourselves in a bind
Exactly.
because we're not following our own policy.
Yeah, but I'm sure we have the ability to filter words.
I'm not
Sure,
sure.
Martin.
I think we need to check with our tech people before we wanted to change
Okay.
that.
But that was the one thing. The other thing was, so if you could check with them and see how that worked. The other concern was in A, ensuring the presence of a teacher or other appropriate district personnel when students are accessing the internet.
I had a question about that too, Charles. We were doing like, how are you
Okay.
monitoring a kid
Because
every
we've got a
second?
wide area network where
Right.
kids can get on the
Filtering
internet
into
anywhere.
that.
So I don't think we can ensure that an adult's going to be looking at everything. And in a computer lab, that's one thing. Because kids are going to be on the internet anywhere.
In the hallway, in the cafeteria, like,
In the
I
labs.
asked the same thing, and
Okay.
I forgot what you said. What'd you say?
Yeah,
There was a reason.
yeah,
So
watch-
like the teachers are in the building or something.
yes.
That's enough? Just in the building?
Well, I think it was around the filtering, so what did we say?
I don't know, but you had a good answer, because I asked the
I
same
had a good answer.
Because I asked the
Believe
same
me.
thing.
Lori
But
said-
if we say that we're ensuring a presence,
You know?
that means to me you're looking over it. That you are assuming responsibility for oversight.
What is,
Yeah.
what
It's
is
ensuring a teacher is in the
asynchronous?
Ensuring the presence of a teacher, that means you've got somebody walking around looking at what they're doing.
I wasn't sure I understood what synchronous and asynchronous electronic communication was. Can you explain that?
Well, synchronous means that it's same time communication. Like on a telephone, when you talk, you can hear the other person talking at the same time.
like
Text
FaceTime.
is you text and it goes and then they have to text back. That's asynchronous.
Asynchronous is fully. Okay. Thank you.
I think the intent of paragraph A was is not students who have access to their phones in the cafeteria when it's on their own time. I think when it's a district led
Classroom or
classroom
something.
or
Right.
classroom expectation or initiative that
I
we're
asked the same
using.
thing about that.
We're using the laptop cart. We're going to the computer lab. We're going to use the computers in the library where there are a few over there. That there will be supervision by the district because it's a classroom expectation that we use technology. It's not what we do in the cafeteria.
Do you want
on
to
our
add then that
phones.
during some sort of class time? I mean, maybe just add like, just that it's while they're actually in class or at that point as opposed to just when they're sitting in the lunchroom? During group activities or something like that.
That just strike the whole paragraph.
Well, what you have two paragraphs above that is no filtering technology can guarantee.
So it does give you that.
It gives you, the idea of paragraph A was supervision. That if I'm an English teacher and we're going to go work on our essays and print and hand in the first draft, I'm going to be there as a representative of the district, and I play a supervisory role in what you're doing.
And if you're sending that to
So
a
do we need
specific
to say that?
website,
We need to say that in that succinct way. That if it's related to classroom activities, then we're going to supervise it.
We can. I mean, it wasn't a
During
defer
directed
to the
activities?
committee, but it wasn't. Never really came up in that sense. we
Do you
can
want to
kick it,
say
we can
like
kick it
during
back to the
directed
committee.
activities or something? or-
Why don't we wordsmith it, we'll come back.
Okay.
Actually, while you're wordsmithing, while I'm sitting here looking at it, you're talking about when using electronic mail chat rooms and other forms of synchronous and asynchronous electronic. That's sort of archaic language. We've moved on because now there's other.
Which
Things.
part of it?
Well,
No, which
E-
part? Which
email,
part is
chat rooms.
chat rooms and everything after chat rooms, and actually, currently people just say email. I mean, it's a technical thing, but what I'm saying is there's a whole lot of other forms of electronic communications that we need to be aware of. Twitter and
Well, I think that's where
Instagram.
that's where the
That's the
synchronous
other
and
forms of
asynchronous came
synchronous
up.
and asynchronous
I think that's your
communications.
blanket.
Well, and remember, this is, the intent of this policy is around school or teacher-directed use of technology. It's not, it doesn't put us on the hook to supervise
Your phone out on the playground
or
or
what
something, or
what
in the
you
parking
tweet
lot.
or post on Facebook on the bus. You know, we use our filtering system to
It's what
and
we're
not
asking you
allow
to
it.
look for.
But
It's what we're
it's-
asking
yeah,
you to
it's
look for.
What we're
and-
asking district personnel to be aware of,
And that we're doing
in
what we can
school-related.
to, and we're doing what we can to sort of filter as much as possible. I think we can take A and you guys.
Actually, on A, I just noticed paragraph above A that, is describing the ABCs below it. It says it's in, matters on the internet World Wide Web may include. So this is a list of things we may do, not that we're saying we are doing.
And it's not limiting either.
Right.
Mhm.
So it's it's kind of informing people these are the types of things we may do, and we're going to do which ones
Sure.
make sense in a particular situation. So I don't know that we're trying to say that we're having that scenario where you're saying there's a person looking every time, but we may
Yeah.
do that. Whereas if it's in a policy, you can't say why you're looking over my shoulder to see what it's about. This is saying putting in policy that we are our staff is allowed to monitor.
Did you get most of this from NISBA?
I think
This
that
was
may
a-
be-
I don't know where
This
the
was a
policy
prior
came
policy
from originally,
originally.
but it was, and.
But
Yeah,
perhaps you would
The intent of the policy, what really changed, and we had met with Matthew, was that red one-sentence paragraph was to recognize a more widespread use of personal devices.
Right.
That kids are bringing their own technology for school-related projects and so on and so forth. Kids have their own laptops or word processors. That's an old word. But they're using their own technology to supplement district technology to get work done. And so what this did was allowed us to enforce the supervision of what they're doing and accessing on their personal device while they're
Well, that's A. That's not
under
that's
the
not the
auspice.
red. That's A. That's
well, no,
not-
but it identifies
just
their own
basic.
devices are included in
But it
the
doesn't.
supervision.
Well, actually, the one
But it doesn't say.
filtering
It says
implemented on
devices loaned to
devices loaned to
students.
students,
Yeah.
loaned to students for home use.
Yeah, so that's
That's-
not the
that's-
students. That doesn't say that that it's. I would think A, if anything else, that the fact that somebody is checking to see what somebody is doing on his home computer, the computer he brings from home in class, I think that speaks more to that. This is
Yep.
still talking about like Chromebooks or something,
Yeah,
or whatever.
Or a one-to-one
So,
initiative.
correct. So I think if that's the case, I don't think that changes the red part. But I think if you want to talk about the fact that there is going to be more supervision on students while they're in class,
Using
then
the-
that's it. Then you may be, during these directed activities, maybe work that. But I think A does say that that's where you're going to that we are looking at what kids are doing on their own equipment as
Right.
opposed to ours, as opposed to the district. So I think that is what A says. So, but maybe work that a little bit and maybe have the conversation and bring that back.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Nice.
So
surprisingly involved, more than we
That's
thought it would
right.
be. All right. So the next one is
Grading systems.
grading systems, and that is 4710. Lori, that sounds like it's yours.
Grading is considered a positive tool to indicate achievement and development. It means
When
thank you.
first
So I was
read it,
waiting.
oh, this is 4710.
Charles!
You're letting her
I do it
down.
once and I assume responsibility for it for the whole time.
Forever, for years and years and years. The only part that we actually changed, if you move down, is that bottom paragraph, correct?
Report cards.
It just clarifies who is allowed to change and not change a grade when and accordingly. So we needed to clarify that.
This comes out of a comptroller's audit. Of all
Right.
people, the controller was reviewing grade changes in a number of districts and made a set of recommendations to districts close to us. Wappingers, I believe, was one. Wappingers or Arlington, one or the other, Peekskill, and some others. So this recommended language comes from their analysis. And what it essentially does is clarifies the window and the access to change grades, because as standards have been heightened and accountability measures have been put in place, there have been issues with teachers, counselors, or administrators around grade changing. And the comptroller's findings, one of the findings was a recommended policy change. So we dusted our policy off. I think this was maybe a year ago, Charles. We had begun the conversation because those findings came out from the controller. So we were looking at our policy, and this policy is really more of a statement compared to the regulation. The regulation is very detailed in terms of access and timing and authorization and those sort of things.
It also had to do with, don't forget, some kids go to summer school, and it was who was allowed to put their correct grade in their transcript, so they just wanted to clean that up a little bit and make sure the correct people were doing it in a certain window, and after that window, they had to get permission from the building principal, et cetera, or a designated person. So we went with our building principal. But there are some places where more than one person is allowed to change a grade based on not only the negative, but when kids actually pass over summer school, et cetera. So,
I think it's important to have the principal, aware that these things
Yes.
are happening as well.
very much so.
Okay. Do we have any other questions?
No, I just have a consistency thing in that. In the paragraph that you inserted, you call it a building administrator in the first sentence, and in the second sentence you said should have administrator, so that could be any.
Where, Charles?
You want to use building administrator both?
Yes, building administrator in both instances. If you're going to use it in one place, you got to use it in
So you want to be principal on both sides?
Well, no, I haven't even got to that part.
No, but I mean, there's building, okay.
That's where I'm getting to. In the next to last paragraph, Lori, you have building
So just
administrator, and the next sentence you just said administrator, so it should be building administrator both times, correct? Because it could be any administrator. If it says should an administrator enforce a grade change, it could be any administrator.
Well, is it principal or is it AP?
Should this administrator enforce a grade
This or
change?
that administrator.
Could be Joe, could it be Margaret, could they?
Exactly.
Right. So, but then in the last paragraph, you say only the building principal. So that there are 3 administrators at the high school, 2 administrators at the middle school. So if it's only the principal can do it, you need to say principal.
So where you have administrator twice in the second to the last paragraph, you want to move that change that to principal?
I would like that.
Okay.
What is it that you want to do? What works if the building principal is out of town at this point in time?
Well, they can, through the regulation,
Yeah, they
they can
can.
authorize it.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
I just want consistency because
Okay.
it's the same person.
So we'll change it in the second to the last,
Principal.
where administrator to principal. Other than that, any other
In
changes?
2 places, I guess.
2 places.
Correct.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, exactly. So with those changes, we'll approve it with those changes. Can I get a motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. And the third is leaves of absence. And that's, who is that? Barbara?
Really,
Or you?
nobody's, but I'll read it.
Okay.
Leaves of absence. The board recognizes that.
Move to waive.
Thank you, Charles. I think the change is all the way at the end on this one.
It's not in red.
There we go.
Did you print that?
No, this is what,
Where is it?
Family medical.
oh, there it is, family medical.
It's,
Second
the-
page.
Request pursuant.
The last two sentences of, the last three sentences of the last paragraph.
Leave request pursuant to FMLA.
Yeah, so the original policy is 8 years old, and some of these changes have been made to comply with existing employment contracts. So essentially what this calls for is before an individual can go on FMLA, they have to exhaust their existing accrued time in their contract. Some of our contracts state that, and our policy hadn't. So it's a way of creating some consistency among all 5 of the employment agreements, as well as the policy, as well as FMLA.
The law. Right.
Well,
Which is the
FMLA
law.
dictates the,
Yeah.
so. All right,
That was it.
and that is it's a second reading anyway, so, any questions?
Yeah. In the FMLA, in one of the other places, the question I had is with 30 days notice of the intended leave, if the employee has to take emergency leave,
Then it's not FMLA, it's they'll use their sick time.
what if they don't have enough sick time to get to FMLA?
Oftentimes we work with those employees, but worst case scenario, it may be an unpaid leave, and then we can retroactively
This is
approve
guidelines.
FMLA.
This
These-
is,
Well, I noticed in one of the other leaves of absence, there was an option to, at the superintendent's discretion in that situation, and I didn't know if we needed the language. And I
No,
can't
because
find it.
those are in the contracts. Those provisions are provided in the employment agreements.
and I think everybody's human. I think there's also an understanding of
Immediacy and emergency.
exactly an emergency.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Charles, that was an example, and we had an example last year.
Yes.
So, okay, can I get a motion to approve 9116 with the revisions as shown?
So moved.
Second? So those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That brings us to board comments, new business. The piece of which was the, one idea was the board of retreat protocols that have you put them up yet, or you're?
Yeah, so they're here. These were part of our retreat where we go through our operations, we go through what works, what doesn't, and make recommendations and priorities for the new year. You all, us all, came up with three new recommendations in terms of protocols. Now, the protocols are guidelines. They're not adopted as a policy, but they do appear on our website and other places. So I at least thought we should all hold hands and see if we still agree to the 3 additions, so we can cut and paste and make update our website. The first one is number 8. About having discussions with regards to board leadership to try to commit to a timeline to have those discussions, and that's
Sooner rather than later.
that's a board thing, so it's more of an internal accountability mechanism. Number 36, that if we're making any additions to the agenda, that a notice goes out. We have a process where our team meets on Thursdays to look at the agenda, look at what's coming. Friday gives Roseanne a day from that Thursday meeting to Friday to put it together and make sure I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and then we publish it, and we create a notice that we publish it. But there are opportunities from Friday afternoon until when we meet that we add things or pull things or so on and so forth. We try to limit those because we want to create transparency and a routine with the community, but oftentimes there are things that happen last minute that we have to get done. So this protocol asks that the board be communicated with to let them know there was a change and what the change is.
I'm smiling because Roseanne now has a Friday because of board docs.
Has a what?
Has a Friday.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
And Bill because he doesn't have to get a notebook every Friday.
And then the other
Every other Friday.
The other recommended was number 50, which you guys can maybe deliberate a little bit more, but was to try to create a layout of our table here to try to create an environment more conducive to discussions, and we can see each other and we can see the presentations. That may be an ongoing goal as we get into some heavy stuff when we unroll our strategic plan initiatives for this year, and certainly talk about the building condition survey. Maybe we organize ourselves differently for some of those conversations.
It could change.
It could change, but
some days you may move it together,
Yep.
others.
But I think it's a stretch goal to try to create it's no different than what classroom teachers do. Sometimes we got to be in rows because we got to hear things a certain way, and other
Too
times
much
we
talking going on.
group ourselves. That's right.
Move people around.
So if we still agree to what we talked about in July, we'll just if we get a thumbs up, we can make these additions to our website.
All good?
Oh,
I don't think so because it's not a
But if
not a
there's any
binding
changes.
agreement, but we just wanted to put it on the record.
That we're thinking
Of course.
about these things.
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. All right, so then these changes can be made. We can
Okay.
take the highlight out.
We'll do that.
Okay. So that pretty much, are there any other new items?
Just a question, how did our half-day go? First half-day?
Our early release.
Early release.
I'll have Margaret touch on that, but it went well. Everyone got home when they were supposed to get home. Different department leaders and grade level leaders had their agenda and had some student work or not student work, but teacher work in terms of product. But I'll have her report on that. We took some pictures. We had some feedback. Different departments are in different places, want to use their time differently for the next one, which I think is in early December. But, yep, I'll get you some
Good.
more formal discussion. I mean, the idea came from Lori.
We had ours today, that's
right.
what, ours
you
was
had
today
yours
too.
Okay.
Yep.
So that brings us to the end of our meeting. Our next Board of Ed meeting is 3 weeks from today, November 9th, the day after the election. And that will be here at the library. And between now and then, there will be one, I meant to mention it earlier, our high school PTA is making a lot of efforts to communicate with the community and to provide them opportunities to learn and to sort of share knowledge. And one of the things that they're doing is a college forum next. They'll be doing it next Monday night and next Tuesday morning, where they have parents of students who've gone through the process talk to some of the other high school, the parents of the high school students who are either going through it or gearing up for it. They did it last year, and it was, I think they had something like, I think it was 80, I think it was 60 the first night and something like 25 the next. It was very well received. So it's this coming Monday. They will be doing, I believe it's here in the library, and they'll do it. The guidance counselors come. Jim Mackin has come and spoke. The students sit down, come and spoke. Has spoken. The students sit on the panel, as well as parents who have gone through the athletic process, or have students that are doing doing the auditioning piece for children who are more artistically inclined as opposed to academically, or students who are going to have the benefit of who will be playing sports in college as well. So it really covers the whole gamut, as well as you get the students' perspective, how they're looking at it, what they've done so far, and sort of how they're gearing up, or suggestions even for approaching the SATs and ACTs. So it's really it's a wonderful thing that the high school and the guidance counselors have put together So if you have the opportunity, I would truly recommend coming if you have a child who's anywhere near that window.
And they're replicating it the following day for
On Tuesday
yeah,
morning.
for the general.
Yep, they'll be doing it on Tuesday morning as well. So they do 2 sessions for people who have different schedules. So again, the next Board of Ed meeting is 3 weeks from tonight. And between now and then, get out and vote on November 8th. Can I get a motion to close?
Yes.
Second? All those in favor?